And we're back at Hammond Manor. This time we're going to be doing Dean's Day 12. I know we haven't done Roswell's Day 11 yet. I'm just trying to get all caught up on these videos since Grizz is getting ahead of me with the releases. So we're going to play through the Day 12 on Dean's Route today, and then I should be able to catch up with the next day when that comes out not too long in the future. And then we'll get to Roswell's when I have a little more time. I think I'm getting close to getting caught up with some of these updates on the various VNs. So that's making things a little easier. Anyway, that's what the situation is. So let's pick things up at the end of Day 11, when we did actually meet Oswin and do that stuff that OBS didn't want to record. Day 12. There was a familiar floating sensation I was very quickly getting used to, and I didn't like it. Almost before I could hear it, and for sure before I could see anything, I knew where I'd end up. Sitting on my bed felt off, but maybe because I was fairly certain that this was just a dream. After all, with everything going on, there's no way that I had it backwards. I made my way downstairs, wondering why I was thinking of home so much. I missed it, sure. More so with everything else going on too. Dad? No response. A blessing in disguise, and I felt relieved, if a little. Still, what relief was soon replaced with loneliness, knowing the one person I wanted to be around, that I could turn to for advice, was long gone. Not only that, but I'd given myself the impression I'd pushed everyone away in trying to cope with my problems, only to make more instead. Dean brought up his ex, and I felt betrayed a little. He should have told me sooner, but at the same time it wasn't my place to ask. I just assumed he'd know better, but he was just as new to this as I was. Maybe he was just scared? That's something I could relate with, at least. I looked out to the front yard, most of it a haze and a blur of colour instead of what was actually there. The letterbox was the most distinct thing out there, having spent most days leaning on it waiting for Dad to come home. Dad? I spoke to no one in particular, half expecting him to be around or to just show up, but things were quiet. Looking around the living room again, I took stock of everything that held some sort of fond memory. The anchor sitting against the wall that Dad bought, Mom's diploma hanging proudly on the wall, a couple of painted rocks sitting on the bookcase I'd put there for decoration. These were things that we'd put there as a family, each with a story that made me smile. But now, thinking about with how Dad was gone and Mom working so much, it was just lonely. Mom? Much like before, there was no reply. She wasn't around either, but that was something that wasn't too new. When Dad died, she'd lost a lot of her edge, coming home mostly to sleep only to disappear back at work. I can't remember the last time we ate a meal together, even living in the same house. But that's the void that Tyson filled, or maybe I just forced him into that role. Maybe he didn't mind, or maybe he did. I never thought to ask. I found myself in my kitchen, just as empty as the rest of the house. It was a cruel reminder of what was to come after this vacation. Everyone leaving, shy of Dean or Tyson maybe, for who knows how long. Maybe I should leave too, or ask if I can just follow, just so I wasn't left behind. I felt cold, deflated, and before I knew it, I was waking up. Ugh. It was early enough that I'd only been down for a couple of hours. My mind was racing with everything that had happened. I checked my phone and it was still charging. Even that had a little comfort in me. Sitting up in bed, I whined, hanging my head. I was tired, but not sleepy. Maybe I needed a warm glass of milk, or a walk, or something. The house was quiet. Hands in the pouch of my hoodie as I descended the foyer. The tiles were cool and smooth on my feet, making me flinch the moment I touched down. Something else caught my attention instead. The sound of someone upset. I edged closer to the dining room, easing the door further open than it already was to peer inside. Roswell was pacing along the length of the table, arms folded and mumbling something to himself. He sounded more distressed than anything else, and didn't hear me as I approached. Roswell? Slowly, almost carefully, he straightened and looked at me with his eyes glistening wet in what little light was in the room. "Oh, hey, Dave, I can't sleep?" I nodded, and he nodded along with me, averting his gaze and rubbing his arms. "There's been a lot going on." "Well, you can say that again." "Listen, Roswell, you know ghost stuff, right?" "Oh yeah, why?" I fiddled with my hands while I sat in the pouch of my hoodie, unsure of how best to ask. "Is dying scary? Does it hurt?" I don't... You don't know any magic that would... I shut my eyes tight as I trembled, a feeble whine escaping my clenched jaw. He reached out and touched my arm, flashing me a weak smile. "Oh, so that's why you weren't at dinner. Orlando was sketchy on the details when he went to check on you." I didn't really tell him anything. His voice was quiet and calm. He eased back to pull out a chair. "Oh, sit down. I'm going to make you some tea." I grimaced, only to have Roswell lean in a little closer. "Oh, fine. Coffee. But only if there's decaf." "All right." Roswell flashed me one last smile before disappearing into the kitchen as I sat down. Once again it was quiet, and I found myself sitting there with my head empty. Before I knew it, Roswell was coming back from the kitchen and setting something down in front of me. "Roswell, but this is... Oh, no decaf, but I thought this might help." I looked down on the sugary drink, chocolatey and creamy. I cupped the mug and used it to warm my hands. "But what's up?" I shook my head, staring at the drink in front of me as Roswell pulled up a chair beside me. "I think I'm a bad boyfriend." "What?" "I mean, potential boyfriend. I talk with Dean and he told me about his ex, but that just made him sad." "This is the first I'm hearing about it." "Yeah, I thought that maybe he'd know what you were meant to do. I think he's just trying his best when I'm just sitting here pitying myself." "Well, maybe, but how bad are we talking?" "About his ex? Well, bad enough that I found out why he kept insisting that all the dates we had didn't count." "Even so, I get the impression he's trying his best, right? He occasionally comes across as completely tactless, but he's trying at least." "Yeah. Even though Dean was hurting, he was still trying. So why wasn't that coming as easily to me?" Roswell pulled out his phone, placing it on the table. "I'm not sure if this would help, but can I try?" "Sure." He turned on his phone and flicked through some photos before setting on one and leaving the phone in clear view on the table. Hoss, Orlando, Roswell and I are all dressed up in costumes for a thing Hoss put together. We were all smiling and I remembered the day well. I remembered working hard on my costume for ages. We all looked good. It was a day that I remember being happy. When I look at this picture, I think of my friends. I think of people that made my life happy even if we might not get to see each other every day. He scratched his head and sighed out, staying quiet as he leaned back in his chair. I guess what I'm trying to say is that these people in this photo, these are only some of the people that have your best interest at heart. We're here for you if you want it. Thanks. My tone was hollow and I didn't even think to hide it. Instead, I just drank from the cup of cocoa that Roswell had given me. But when I did, things felt a little better. The way the sweetness played on my tongue lifted my spirits, if only a little. Well, it's no easy solution, Dave, but please don't forget you've got us, right? Okay. I sat the empty mug in front of me and got up, suddenly exhausted. Well, sleep well, Dave. Yeah. When I snuck a look back at Roswell, he flashed me a smile, if fleeting, as he was taking my mug into the kitchen. Cleaning up after myself wasn't a priority, but I was tired enough that I just wanted to try and sleep. Let whatever happens, happen. That'd be fine, right? I had backup if it got too bad, so I could just stop, right? Those were the thoughts I fell asleep to, as quickly as it happened when I got back in bed. The others were still inside, still assembling for breakfast. I got some sleep, but it didn't seem to do any good. I leaned against the railing on the back deck, just looking out in the world, and wondering just where things left me. Would it have just been better if I'd stayed at home? I hear the back door open, followed by Sal's heavy footsteps. Good morning. Hey, Sal. He drummed his fingers against the railing as he watched me carefully, silent beyond that greeting. What's wrong? Well, nothing on my end, but what about you? I sighed, looking back at the trees briefly while I thought over how best to answer. I think I'm just ready to go home. So soon? That would make sense, all things considering. You talking about what came up at dinner? He nodded slowly, looking over the trees much in the same way I did. We're all worried for you. I'll be fine. And you're sure? Maybe. Well, okay. He pulled away from the railing before stopping short. What are you planning on doing today? Dunno. If Oswald was going to keep it to his word, he'd be revealing himself at some point today. Part of me didn't want to see him again so soon after our last meeting. Well, whatever you decide to do, I can make myself available if you want the company. I whined, quickly turning to him. Why? Because we're friends. I said something horrible to you and you didn't get to sleep, and then you had to put up with Orlando's swimming lesson and... He placed his other hand on my shoulder and flashed me a smile. Dave, it's all right. I'm sorry, Sal. I know. You didn't do it just to be mean, and Dean talked it out with me, so no harm done. Oh. I eased my hand away and he nodded to me, continuing on inside. My stomach rumbled a little, figuring it was time for breakfast. Taking one last look around, I sighed. Today would be better, or at least I hoped so. When I walked into the dining room, I felt everyone look up. Not quite staring, but it felt as if they were. With so much attention on me, I shuffled along the length of the table into the kitchen, leaving them behind. Rushing over the kitchen sink, I grabbed a glass and grabbed some water, gulping it down while clutching my chest. It helped, a little. It wasn't nearly as good as the hot brew that I had expected to come in here for. Bracing myself on the sink, I caught the sight of movement just off to the side, shrinking without having realised I had company. Oh. My hand went to my wrist, remembering the last time I spoke to Benson in the kitchen, although he didn't seem to react when I did so. But boy, you're looking worse for wear. Is it that obvious? I'd say you're making no effort to even hide it. He strode closer, around me to the coffee machine and started to brew some coffee. Coffee for Oswin? No, my boy, you're in no state to prepare this yourself. Every chance you potentially spill it, rather. Take a seat and I'll bring it to you. Shuffling along, I took a seat at one of the stools about the kitchen, resting against the countertop while I watched Benson work. Thank you, Benson. My, this is a departure from the other morning. Sorry. Now, Dave, we all have our moments of weakness. Granted, the apology is appreciated. I don't quite like being accosted within the home in which I reside. He carefully placed the cup of coffee in front of me, and I took it graciously. The moment I started to drink, I started to feel a little better. Thank you. And now then, how did last night go? I grumbled, looking down at my coffee. It went all right. I didn't like what he had planned, though. Only avoided that because I'd gotten lucky. Lucky? Well, I had a feeling I should go to the vault before meeting him, and, well, I gestured over my coffee, hoping he'd fill in the blanks. Thankfully, he seemed to follow, nodding slowly. I see the master is up to his old tricks. Not that they are very entertaining, so I'll have to give him a stern talking to. Don't you work for him, though? That's complicated, Dave. The nature of our relationship is muddled beyond just a master and servant. In what way? The old master of the house was Put simply, a lacking father. Raising the 3 siblings was a handful, but not something beyond my capabilities. They weren't that young, but inquisitive minds as they are proved trialing. I may be on his payroll, but in truth I'm much closer to a family member. Oh, I see. Forgive me for asking, but what did you make of his rat? What did I make of it? The whole thing was kind of odd. I'd never spoken to a rat before. Not one like that, anyway. Oh, that's one way to put it. Frankly, I can't say I'm a fan of it, but the rat keeps him happy. How bad could a rat be? He sighed out, shaking his head. In truth, not all that bad, but it's more like I don't like, shall we say, its attitude. His accent is funny too. Quite. Finishing my coffee, I took the cup over the sink and started to rinse it off before noticing Benson's eyes trained on me. Oh, should I not be washing my cup? No, that's fine. It's more curiosity. What are you intending to do with your day, all things considered? I don't really know. Then, if I may be so bold, perhaps being cooped up in the house is plain to your detriment? You mean take a walk? I did that the other day. Well, yes, but all things considering, the mountain air might do you some good, far away from the things that seem to be troubling you. The vault, Oswin. Those, plus the people in the other room. Friends they may be, but your investment in them is causing you to break. I grumbled, shouldn't have given the same line as he did last time. I won't break. Good heavens, my boy, trust that I know it when I see it, but you're being mighty pig-headed. The comment made me do a double take, and he continued as if he hadn't noticed. Let yourself recover. Everyone will be here upon your return, and I can ensure their safety even from Oswin. You're sure? Just let the others know where you're going so they don't worry, and I'll handle the rest. My expression must have hinted that I still wasn't certain. Oh, what's the matter? After last night, it's a matter of trust. Right. How do I know that you're not going to do something to my friends while I'm gone? What if I'm not around to save them? Dave, it's this very thinking that's taxing your sanity. Believe me, my boy, while it is a long time since I've had a contract, making people disappear isn't as hard as it seems. I'd have done so already if I wanted to. Forgive me, that was perhaps not the most tactful thing to say. It's been a while since I've had to address anyone other than a fairly large child. Shooting him a wry smile, I fidgeted on the spot. It's fine, really. If you are to leave the house, I shall promise to keep them safe in your stead. Even from Oswin? Even from Oswin. Everyone. After I'd readied myself, I had headed into the kitchen to let the others know what was going on. The only problem was not everyone was still here. Oh. Are you alright? Dean was looking at me, concerned, but he didn't seem happy, almost as if he were just going through the motions. I'm alright. He nodded slowly, looking to Hoss. Dave, what's going on? I wanted to tell everyone I was going to go out for a walk. Again? Yeah, I figure I need to get out of the house and just stay away from it for a bit. Get some fresh air. Dean scratched his chin. He looked me over, raising an eyebrow. We'd been out yesterday for most of the day, but it wasn't like that. All right. I half expected him to offer some company, given we were surrounded by woodland, but no such invitation came. Well, stay safe, I suppose. I'm just thankful you're at least telling someone this time. I looked between the two of them, suddenly unsure if I should be leaving. Should I go tell the others? Oh no, it's all right. I'll let them know. Oh, okay. Then I guess I'll be going now. Dean stepped forward and put a hand on my shoulder, flashing me a quick smile. Oh, stay safe. Then after lingering a few moments, he turned around and left. I looked to Hoss, who almost seemed just as eager to go. See you when you get back. Just like that, Hoss left after Dean. Maybe they were off to do something together, but who knows? Everyone else was already doing things, and whatever they were, it didn't include me. I wandered out the front door and looked out at the grounds that sprawled out before the house, a long stretch of grass with the driveway disappearing down a ways through the trees. I've been down that way before. Not all the way, but maybe that was somewhere I could go. I'd slept most of the way on the bus after all. Maybe it was time I checked out what was at the end of the driveway for real. The main selling point was that if I was looking to avoid everyone for a bit, it'd be the least likely place for people to go. As I wandered down the driveway, I had my hands in my pockets and let my mind wander. It was nice out here, peaceful, so all that was left was to find a way to resolve my feelings. I really liked Dean. If I knew what it was like to love someone, I'd feel more confident saying that I did. It was a different feeling than any of my other friends, not in a bad way, but just different. Was this what love was? That romantic sort of love you have for someone that you'd end up marrying someday, maybe? The thought made me smirk for a moment, before remembering what had happened yesterday. Dean's ex, how it had caused his sleeping problems, how he seemed to think about it every day. Hearing him explain what had happened made me feel closer to him, but also further apart. I liked it when we went out to get food or go out and see something. It was almost like hanging out with a friend, but I assumed that because he'd asked me out. I think we owe each other apologies, Dean. Shaking my head, I continued down the driveway as I thought. Had we been leading each other on? Were we both even ready to date someone? What I wanted now, more than anything, was to just talk to Dean and figure out where things sat between us. Soon enough I hit the main road, the mountains opening up in front of me. I had to shield my eyes from the light, and been walking in shade for most of the trek down. Wow. We were much higher up than I'd realised, with the mountains and forest rolling out as far as I could see. As I stood there looking down the drop-off on the other side of the road, I wondered how often people came this way. When I looked down the road, I wondered just how far away the next house was. With how it wound around the corner, it was hard to tell just how long the road was. Which, given I had all the time in the world, I wandered down it, realising that this road only led to the mansion and nothing else. Sure enough, the road continued to wind around the mountain, across a bridge and out of sight with no other houses in view. I wanted to go home. The road back was long. I could just continue walking down this road and never look back, and I'd be done with everything involving everyone dying. But that's just not how I worked. The thought that one of us was marked for death lingered deep in the back of my mind, despite me not knowing for sure who it was. Just give up, Dave. Let whatever happens happen. Let them die. As I stood in the middle of the road, my eyes wandered over the cliff to my right, rising high before plateauing somewhere higher up where yet more trees sat. Then over to the other side of the road, where a river occasionally peered out from behind the trees a long way down. Everything behind me back at the mansion was its own little world, when I wanted to escape. Edging closer to the edge of the road, I wondered for a second what would happen if I were to just fall off then and there. I wondered what it'd be like to die, and if I'd get to see Dad again. I wondered what Mom would think, or what she'd do, or if she'd even notice. All it should take would be to just one step and then another towards the edge of the road and peering over the edge. Staring down at the trees below made me feel lightheaded, and I quickly stepped away. I can't. Falling back on my rear, I buried my face in my hands, ashamed and embarrassed. Yet I still couldn't cry. Even facing my own death wasn't enough to set me off. Instead, I just wailed and whined into the open air. I got up and just yelled, angry, confused, upset. I didn't care. Hours passed before I started to head back up the driveway, my throat sore. Each step I took back towards the house made me think if the others had been listening, if they'd even heard at all. And if they did, if they cared. The sound of a twig snapping caused me to stop. Quickly looking around, I tried a place where the sound had come from. "Who's there?" There was nothing but silence as my reply, but I stood there and waited. My eyes darted about the place expecting to see something, anything. I was about to start walking when I heard another snap somewhere nearby. Hello? I spun around and started to back up. This were one of my friends. They'd have answered. The next thing I did was run as fast as my legs were carrying me back to the house. I don't know how long I'd been running for, but I started to slow down further up the driveway. Listening in, I tried to figure out if I was being followed, if whatever had been in the woods was still nearby. What was that? I leaned up against a tree to catch my breath, occasionally looking over my shoulder. Nothing as far as I could tell. Continuing on, I got back to the manor. As I got closer, I saw Benson standing outside the front door, looking out to the grounds. Back from your walk, I see. Did it help? I didn't respond to him right away, looking over my shoulder, scanning the tree line. What's the matter? I think someone was out there with me. That should be impossible. The manor and its grounds are private property, my boy. Yeah, well, I heard something out there. Benson stepped closer, putting a hand on my shoulder before continuing just past me to look at the way I'd come. What did you hear? I was heading back to the manor and twigs snapped. Benson eased off slightly, but he still seemed tense, searching the trees one last time before turning back to me. Well, perhaps it's best if you stay out of the woods the rest of the day, just in case. Really? It can't be? The words were only half out of my mouth before I noticed the look he was giving me, the slight quirk in his brow as if questioning how genuine I was being. Okay, fair enough. I went ahead inside before he spoke again, making me stop and return his confused look. I hope your yelling helped settle yourself, Dave, although I'd hazard your friends are likely going to ask about that. Oh, where are they? Benson played with his moustache, thinking it over. You had gone on a walk yourself, so they decided to head out too, granted as a group. Oh. I forced a smile, although it only emphasized how lonely I felt. Are you concerned for your friends? They should be fine together, but if you wish I can warn them by heading into the forest myself. No, it's all right. They deserve to have some fun together. Turning away from Benson, I headed inside. When I got to my room, I stripped down and got into the covers, willing myself to sleep. The longer I slept, the longer I didn't have to consciously think about everything going wrong. Or at least that's what I told myself. If I could stay asleep forever, maybe that'd just be better than being here in this mansion. Dave. I could hear him, clear as anything. When I opened my eyes, there he was. There he is. Dad. I knew it was a dream. I knew that he wasn't real or even there, but it was so clear and so real I wanted to believe that if I reached out I'd be able to feel him. Hey, sport, what's got you down? Huh? Nothing's got me down. Really? Don't buy that for a second, chap. Your nose is doing that scrunchy thing mine does. He made a show touching his own nose while reaching out for mine. Where he would have touched, instead I flinched away. So come on, Dave, what's wrong? Dad, I miss you. I want you here. I don't want to be alone and everyone's dying and... I'm scared. I really am scared that I'm not normal. Why haven't I cried, Dad? Why? Hey, Spall. Hey, now. I wanted to cry again. I really did. But instead my face just sort of scrunched up painfully instead. You're allowed to cry. You know that, right? I want to. But you can't. Why? I don't know. I could feel myself tugging at the fur on my arms. Maybe it's something I was doing even while asleep. It was hard to say. The faintest sound of a siren echoed somewhere in the distance, muffled as if I were hearing it from behind many walls and with headphones on. Flashes of red and blue started to stain what I was seeing, alternating between the two until it was all I could see. I cowered whenever I thought of that night. More so than the funeral or even everything else that happened after. That was the night that changed everything for me. When I woke, it was late, having slept most of the day away. Even with the amount of sleep I'd just finished, I was still tired. Not physically from my walk, but something else. Seeing it was time for dinner, I left my room, and the moment I got down the stairs I could hear the others in the dining room. They sounded happy, which was good. Enough for me to want to gravitate towards the dining room for a peek. All of them were laughing and grinning at Orlando, who seemed flustered about something, his mane a mess. Hey guys. Oh, hello Dave. How'd your day turn out? It went okay. I flashed Ian a wry smile, so used to him calling me handsome that him saying my name felt foreign in the moment. Benson told me you all went out, into the woods maybe? Oh, yeah, we figured if you went out for a walk, we should go on one too. Not to abandon you, but you were gone long before we decided to go out too. Otherwise, I guess we'd have all gone together. Yeah, okay. My voice sounded hollow and I held my mouth slightly open in a dazed smile, turning to Roswell, who had been standing by Orlando quietly. What's wrong, Dave? Nothing, I'm just tired. Oh, alright, well, hopefully you sleep well tonight. I gave a half-hearted chuckle in reply, nodding. Hopefully. Certain as going to be pulled up on it, I closed my eyes and sighed out, straightening my back. For it never happened, likely because the familiar distinct clacking of shoes on tile that echoed in from the foyer. A good evening, everyone. Roswell seemed to be eyeing Benson suspiciously, sneaking a glance at each of us before turning his attention back on the otter. Perhaps it was how Benson was standing by the door that clued me into what was about to happen. That or the heavy footfalls in the foyer getting louder as they approached. Each of my friends looked at one another, confused. They could hear it too, but everyone that should have been in the house was present in the room. Sure enough, the time had come. Oswin stood in the doorway of the dining room, looking to each of us in turn. May I introduce you to the master of the house? It's unneeded, but thank you, Benson. My name is Oswin Hammond. Os was the first one to move, pointing at Oswin briefly. Roswell, your dad is here. Oswin shook his head, eyeing Hoss carefully. No, boy. Okay, well, better question. Why are you here? It's my house, so naturally I'd be here, no? Roswell's jaw was clenched, seemingly none too happy about Oswin showing up. I knew something was up. Something wasn't making much sense unless there was someone else here, but still. If you're going to say something, Roswell, say it. Why are you here? We're staying here for the month. I thought we had it to ourselves. Well, sorry to disappoint your expectation. I'd be willing to let 6 relative strangers stay in my house without me being around. Oswin's attention turned to me, sizing me up. His attention was taken away by Roswell speaking up again. When have you been around this whole time? Benson knew? And when we were all looking for the gun, you didn't say anything? Of course not. But why? Once more Oswin looked at me, maybe trying to figure out how much I told my friends. Put simply, I'm a private man. You don't live on a somewhat private mountain in a mansion where parts of it are hidden behind secret doors if you typically enjoy company. Oh, hidden rooms? They exist? Orlando trembled at the idea, eyes darting between Roswell and Oswin. Mr. Noble, you know full well why those things exist. I'd have thought you'd have learned that firsthand from your father by now. Hidden rooms worked sort of like bank vaults, right? Part of me felt racist thinking that dragons would of course know better, and it was strange Orlando just didn't know. You know my dad? Among many things, if you were to stay here, why wouldn't I want to know about those to be under my roof? It's not hard to get background checks of people if you know who to ask or where to ask. Remember, 4 of you just finished school, so public records are fairly easy to come across. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've come to make myself something to drink. I'll let you go about your business. Oswin wandered past me, patting me on the shoulder as he made his way into the kitchen with Benson on his heels. Damn, well, that's something. Huh? Well, if it's his house, I guess him being here makes sense. I know I'd feel more comfortable with strangers being in my house if I was around. Guests, Dean, not strangers. More importantly, we're guests, assuming Roswell got permission. Oh, he did. I turned to Roswell to check, but noticed him stomping off towards the kitchen. He looked annoyed and focused, ignoring the conversation going on. I'd follow behind him while the others discussed the morality of secretly sharing your house with guests without telling them you're still there. Why are you still here? Oswin had a mug while Benson stood stiff next to the coffee machine. Roswell, meanwhile, was aggressively poking the older boar in the stomach. You mean my house? Benson cleared his throat. That figures to alert the other two that I was in the kitchen. Not they seemed to pay me any mind. Mom and Dad said you'd be off doing something else. We wouldn't have parental supervision. But he's not your dad, right? Dave, what are you... He's been here for a few minutes, Master Roswell, despite my efforts to try and clue you both into that subtly. I don't mind if Dave is here, after all. He handed his mug over to Benson while he spoke, looking over at me before turning back to the butler. He's a guest. Oh, and make that 3 sugars, Benson. Okay, fine, Dave is here, but answer my question. While Benson is good at keeping things in order behind the scenes, the man is big enough for everyone to share with no problem. After all, you didn't know I was here until I revealed myself. You're still not answering the question. Maybe he just doesn't want us to set the house on fire while he's gone? Or even while I'm in it, in all honesty. But I'm here because I want to be, and as is my right to be. I trust you have no issue with this, Roswell huffed, folding his arms briefly in defiance before going to retrieve a mug himself. And you're sure you're not related? Oswald looked at me carefully before looking to Roswell, who was heaping sugar into his mug. I'm sure. Oh, come on, Dave, I know my own parents, and besides we live next to each other. Do you think I'd suddenly be living in a mansion otherwise? Not an uncle or anything? Dave, you know why, that's... He stopped mid-sentence with Roswell turning suddenly from dumping sugar into his mug. Why would Dave know that? Well... I suppose the cat is out of the bag now. What is with this habit of not answering my questions? Perhaps if you had some modicum of decorum, I'd be willing to entertain them. But I feel inquisitive minds such as yours warrant something beyond this simple explanation. Finish making your coffee and we'll round everyone up, as I'm not explaining this more than once. Retrieving his coffee from Benson, Oswin walked back into the dining room, leaving us behind. Did you wish for a cup as well, Master Dave? Sure. After serving Roswell his cup, although with a raised eyebrow from how much of said mug had sugar in it, he made one for me and all of us followed in Oswin's wake. Why should we go anywhere? He'd been in the dining room for a few moments. Already it seems as though the mood was tense. Upon spotting the rest of us, he nodded and gestured for everyone to follow. All right, everyone's here, so let's get going. But you haven't explained why we should be going anywhere. Then don't come. I'm sure Hoss can show you the library in his own time. Wait, what? But Oswin turned away from them, walking out of the dining room, expecting us to follow. Hoss followed soon after, leaving Orlando looking about the room, confused on if he should follow as well. Dean and Sal trudged along next, with Tyson close behind, looking wary. What's going on? I guess he'll explain to us when we get there. Orlando nodded gently to himself, and we followed behind the rest of the group, up the stairs towards the conservatory. He mentioned the library, and without even thinking, I didn't even stop to question where we were going. Sal noticed, having turned to head off to the museum instead, but doubled back to catch up to Dean, on realising that's not where we were headed. Here we are. Everyone here? Good. I'm not going to show you this more than once, so pay attention. Without thinking about it, he pulled the 2 books needed to open the passage that led to the library. The gentle push to bookcase slid aside, revealing the dark corridor behind it. Now, some of you are already familiar with this corridor, I know. I looked at Hoss, who seemed to be focusing intently on the corridor rather than checking to see if anyone was looking at him. But it doesn't matter. The observant of you may have noticed there was something off about the layout of the house, given where you could and could not get to just from looking at the outside. Is it really that noticeable? Oswin just grunted, looking me over. It felt different talking to him like this out in the open somehow. I just couldn't place it. I have a question. Yes, sir, what is it? You mentioned a library, but isn't it back there? I understand how you came to that conclusion, but I assure you, compared to the room beyond this passage, the museum pales in comparison. Without waiting a moment longer, he wandered into the corridor, leaving us behind. Benson followed quietly behind him, eyes forward as if the rest of us weren't there. Roswell stepped forward quickly in Oswin's wake, looking down the corridor. What's wrong, Roswell? Well, it's not just me, right? There's something odd going on. How he appeared out of nowhere? In a daze, Hoss continued down the corridor after Oswin, running his hand along the wall to guide him forward. Well, he does live here, right? Well, yes, but it's how he appeared. Why now? Why is Hoss freaking out? It's not adding up. I noticed Tyson stepping forward, looking down into the darkness after Hoss. Well, I don't trust him. Fuck letting Topcat get in trouble alone. Topcat? You mean Hoss? Ty grunted, shooting me a quick look before going on ahead. Oz and Tyson have been getting closer, slowly. I don't know when the nickname started, but it's something. I'm just glad I didn't get lumped with Dean. Where are you going? Well, I was going to follow the others. What do you make of this, Dean? Oh, he hasn't done anything wrong, so I'm not going to judge. Sal and Roswell exchanged a look before turning back to Dean. What? Oh, nothing. Come on, Dean. Patting Dean on the back, Sal led Dean into the darkness, leaving just Roswell, Orlando and me behind. So, he was fidgeting with his hands, looking between us at the corridor everyone else had gone down. Are we going to follow as well? Well, probably. We don't have a choice, do we? Everyone else has already gone on ahead. Roswell took Orlando by the hand and dragged him through into the dark. As their footsteps faded into silence, I was left alone in the conservatory, wondering how this was going to go. Carefully, I walked the path to the library, wondering how this was going to go. What would the others think about the library and how it had been hidden this whole time? When I got there, I looked down to the lower floor and saw everyone gathered around the desk, sit in the middle of the room. All except Roswell, who was wandering off to the side with his eyes set on what I'd assumed to be the door leading to the lab. I made my way down to the others, grabbing Oswin's attention. Ah, good, everyone's here. What the fuck? Why don't we know about this room? I'd be asking that lion friend of yours, no? What? Once upon a time, Mr. Warner here came to the house and discovered this room when he was preparing for something I don't really care about. But when you arrived, he alone knew of its existence. Hey, that's not fair. Am I lying? Well, no, but... He sighed out, rubbing his head. Okay, fine. Yeah, I've been to this house before and I knew about the library, but I didn't mean to really hide it from anyone. Why'd you come here anyway? An old acting gig that didn't pan out. It doesn't matter. Agreed, it doesn't matter, but some days ago Hoss brought Dave here. That's how your hyena friend and I spoke, at least. Wait, Dave, you've spoken to this guy before? Well, at least I know why you wanted to know about the library now. Then came a nervous chuckle as I backed up a little bit. No, wait, why were you talking to him, Dave? Before I could answer, Oswin cut in, clearing his throat. His interactions with the vault piqued my interest, not to mention his desperation to keep everyone alive, including Benson. So I invited him here for us to have a more private chat about things. You couldn't talk to us more about it, Dave? Orlando put his hand on Hoss's shoulder, shaking his head briefly at him before turning to look at Roswell, messing with the door off to the side. That door over there, though. What about it? Well, it looks like the door in the basement. Ah, right. Well, I can assure you this is just a fairly sturdy door blocking off what I see as my personal part of the house from the rest. As if a hidden passageway from the conservatory isn't enough. Forgive me for assuming you'd understand what it's like having a flair for the dramatic. I wandered away from them over the door where it seemed as though Tyson and Roswell were checking out the door with scrutiny, Benson lingering nearby to keep things in order. What exactly are you guys doing? I'm trying to get this stupid door open. Well, I've been writing through a list of things in my head, see if anything works on the keypad. You know, like the one downstairs. But no luck? Well, Master Gray did try kicking the door down in hopes it'd budge. It was worth trying. Oh, sure, but maybe next time wait until we tried something a little more intelligent than assuming kicking down a reinforced door would work over, you know. He gestured at the keypad that seemed to be wired into the door, causing Tyson to huff. Yeah, well, whatever. What's the password to the door, Benson? Roswell and Tyson shot a glance at one another before looking at me stunned. What? That would have been a good thing to start asking. I felt better kicking the door. Unfortunately, while I know how to open this particular door, I've not been given permission to leisurely hand over the key to it. Oi, what's behind it anyway? Well, something secret, that's for sure. Maybe his bedroom or something else like that. You're on the right track. It's merely what Master Oswin regards as his part of the house, while the rest he allows me to have free reign over. Well, he just locks him behind a door like this? What about when he gets hungry? The advantages of having a butler, Master Gray. I have a question. I did a double take as Sal wandered up the door, gently knocking on it while Roswell went trying to open it with more guesses on the keypad. By all means, what is it, Master Warden? Is Mr. Hammond a doctor?
Probably. Or some other kind of science nerd. Ain't nothing wrong with being a nerd.
Roswell called out without even looking up at the keypad, drawing my attention for all of a second. The technically correct answer to your question is a no, Master Warden. However, as it came up eventually, he did at one point hold a medical doctorate and license to practice medicine, yes.
Well, haven't he fuck up someone's medication or something?
Before Benson could reply, Oswald was on his way over with the rest of the group in tow. As a matter of fact, yes. And if they warranted that I no longer work in a hospital or officially in the field anymore.
Well, shit, alright.
So you were a doctor. Okay. Why? It's nothing. At least not something I want to openly discuss right now.
In that case, find me sometime later. You can ask me at your leisure, Mr. Warden. So, you've been here since we arrived. You know a whole bunch of things about all of us, and you've been helping Dave feel better about letting go into the vault?
Orlando's eyes were looking around the room, focusing mainly on the ceiling high above as if searching for something.
That's right.
Well, the only reason you or Benson didn't tell us was because it was meant to be a secret.
Correct.
Which is why when Roswell asked Benson about who was in the house... Dave, you knew back then, right?
Huh? What makes you say that?
Well, to be honest, your reaction was a little odd. I didn't think anything of it. Just one of those things you came out with because stuff was on your mind.
Oh, well. My fault. After our little chat, I asked him to keep mentioning me to a minimum. Well, at the time I did not realise his nerves were as bad as they are, but he did a good job.
I smiled a little, appreciating the praise. For the briefest of moments, I was thankful I hadn't given him up when Roswell had asked. Part of me wondered what would have happened if I did. Well, what's the plan now?
As far as what exactly? We've been here almost 2 weeks, but you're here, so... Does that bother you? You're welcome to stay for the whole month as originally planned, at least. I see no reason why that should change now, at least. I have no intention on leaving either. Well, sure, but I mean, does this mean you'll be around more, or...?
Oswald's eyes focused on me, looking me over, his brow furrowed briefly before turning back to Orlando. Was he just curious about what I could do with the vault after last night?
Perhaps I'm still deciding, given interacting with this many people at once is something I haven't done in a long time.
Are we that bad?
I wouldn't say that. Exhausting is more accurate. The nature of an introvert, although I would say that interacting more would be beneficial, sir.
He just sighed, shrugging and shaking his head. Well, I'm not about to say he can't join us for dinner, but we know next to nothing about him, which, given he knows about us, feels a little unfair.
Would it be comforting if I had to give you my whole life story over dinner? There's no whole lot to tell.
Well, something is better than nothing. I felt a hand on my shoulder, easing me away from the group and off to the side. Dean fidgeted a little, looking across the ties as if waiting for him to start talking. When he didn't, he nudged him with his elbow.
What?
Well, I thought you were going to ask.
Back off, you're the one that was worried.
I blinked, frowning. What do you mean? So, we were all by the river before and could hear you yelling.
Caught us off guard for a moment. I had to tell him it was just you.
What do you mean, just me?
Look, I'm not a stranger to the whole making sounds when you're upset thing. I howl, I get it.
You howl? When? Why?
Dean, fuck off. We're not having that talk now.
Right, sorry. But he's right, Dave. Some of us wanted to go make sure you're okay, but we didn't really know what was going on.
I heard you wail before. You weren't in danger, just upset. So don't go asking that what if I was killed crap again.
My mouth was open and ready to deliver that very line, but I eased back, embarrassed.
Do you feel better at least?
No.
Well, you'll get there. Dean, help him out.
Carefully, Dean reached out for my hands, taking them carefully in his as he rubbed the back of them with his thumbs. I'm sorry, Dave. He squeezed my hands briefly, flashing me a quick smile before easing away. He scratched his chest, thinking something over. It almost looked like he was about to say something more, but whatever it was, he decided against it.
So you've been keeping this a secret for a few days, huh?
Kept what a secret? Oswin?
Yeah.
Any reason beyond him asking? Not really. When Roswell asked, I thought about telling everyone, but I don't know. Well, I don't know how many times I can say it. If you need to talk to someone, I can make myself available. Even after yesterday.
What happened yesterday?
I told Dave about my last relationship.
The fuck? How's that going to be helpful?
Hey, I need to talk about stuff too. If we're going to be together, well, he needs to know. I'm sorry, Dean.
For what?
For, asking about things.
No, it's alright. You need to know that eventually. I'm sorry I kept it from you for so long. Can you two just kiss and make up already?
Neither of us moved, although we seemed to fidget together, looking anywhere other than each other. Ty sighed, shaking his head.
Can we go eat now? Books suck.
I guess so. What are you guys doing over here?
I'm waiting to fucking leave.
Is Mr. Oswin joining us for dinner?
I think so. Benson was talking about doing dinner tonight as a means of apologising for keeping us in the dark.
Well, alright. I'm fine with that, I think.
Now you have a choice.
Hey, you could be a good guy. I'm willing to give him a chance.
So long as nothing bad happens, I think I'm willing to give him a shot. He let us stay here after all.
Already I found the conversation moving away from me, and I was torn between feeling glad and just sad that I wasn't the centre of attention anymore. We all filed out of the library by the way we came to head to dinner. I lingered at the back of the group, hands in the pouch of my hoodie and letting my feet drag. Sal was acting as a barrier between Roswell and Oswin, while the younger of the two tried to bombard him with questions about the house, other secret passages and such. Us and Tyson were talking anime, I think. They were both eager to be doing something after dinner. Dean was talking to Orlando about something in hushed voices near the front of the train, where Benson was occasionally adding his thoughts on the matter. Once again I found myself outside, not hungry and just wanting to be asleep again. I was so lost in my own head I didn't hear the back door open or the footsteps approach me as they came to stand beside me.
It's a nice night, isn't it?
I grunted as he came to stand next to me, looking out to the surrounding forest.
You've been out here moping a fair bit recently.
Being inside makes me feel trapped, I guess. It's just nice out here. I think I can understand that.
I used to stand right where you're standing when I was young. Either take a break from my siblings or even Benson, my father, mother.
Yeah, well, cool, I guess.
Oh, come now, Dave. It's not all doom and gloom, is it?
Rich coming from you. You were going to inject me last night if I hadn't messed with the vault.
True, that was a surprise to say the least.
So yeah, I think there's plenty to be gloomy about. This was meant to be a vacation. Oswin nodded his head briefly before shooting me a curious look.
Do you regret it?
Regret what?
Caring about your friends so much. Personally, I'm a little envious. I'd assume this is what it'd be like to have a child of my own.
Of course I care about my friends. Any normal person would, right?
Would they?
The reply came so quick I wasn't sure how to react.
You care for your friends, but you're so, let's go with the word selfless, that it's quite fascinating. What you present is far more than just a form of solidarity between friends, Dave.
I wasn't convinced, sighing out and keeping my gaze fixed on a spot beyond the trees.
My point is, you're fighting the good fight, although I admit I'm fairly biased towards that.
What is your stake in this? Why do you care about me doing my best to save who's marked for death?
Simple enough question, I suppose.
There were a few moments of silence where I just assumed that he wasn't going to answer. Instead, it just seemed he was thinking over his answer.
As a doctor, you make an oath to do your best to keep people healthy and alive. As a parent, I imagine it's just the same, but for your children. Understandably, I'm neither of those things, though I would love to be. Perhaps I'm just living vicariously through you. Perhaps I'm desperate to ensure someone else doesn't make the same mistake I did.
Getting someone killed. I didn't expect him to chuckle, but he shook his head.
Not quite. Wasting one's life away wondering what if, or lamenting on opportunities long gone. I ended and finished university early, spent many years in my field before, well, you know.
Can I ask you something?
Go ahead.
How long have you been here by yourself?
Long enough to forget what it's like to be around people as a whole.
Months?
Years, almost decades. Granted, I'll not be by myself. Benson's been around, plus the occasional visitor. It's just a very large house with 2 or even 3 people. Rarely has been double that.
placed a hand carefully on my shoulder, although the weight of it felt heavy. It was meant to be reassuring, it felt more clinical, or the way a teacher would touch your shoulder in that strange mix of encouraging but distant. Benson's likely going to be finished preparing dinner soon, so I'll be heading back inside. Alright, well, have a fun dinner, I suppose. Not hungry? I felt my stomach gurgle. Not hungry, but a vague queasiness that killed my appetite. My silence must have been enough of an answer. In that case, I wish you a good evening, Dave. I'll be up for a while yet, likely answering what questions Roswell has for me, or perhaps Mr. Warner. You're welcome to join us at any time. Are you going to tell them about the marked thing? Should I? No, probably not. Then when you feel it's time, I'll let you be the one to divulge that information. Until then... Oswin turned around and went inside, closing the door gently behind him. I sighed, slumping against the railing, taking one last look around before heading in myself. Rather than heading down with all the others, I headed back to my room. Unlike the night before, no one came to check in on me. I spent the evening laying on my bed, writhing due to the feeling just under my fur, a level of uncomfortable I couldn't quite place the source of. Eventually I had a shower to freshen up, only to continue laying on my bed. No one had checked up on me like the night before, so maybe Oswin had said something. Night settled in and the house was still. For a brief moment I heard movement outside my door, for it moved on, possibly someone heading off to bed themselves. Another hour later I could hear Roswell talking with Hoss nearby. Not enough to make out what they were saying. They were going back and forth about something. Apparently Roswell filling him in on something. That too fell quiet. I rolled over in my bed to get under the covers. I cuddled down as best I could, wishing for someone to come save me from myself, wishing that something would just magically make everything better. Let whatever happens happen. Just give up, Dave. I found myself mouthing the words now, just shy of saying them myself. My head hurt, my heart ached, but despite it all I was able to get to sleep. And there we go, to be continued. So our next password video will continue on with day 13, and that comes out in a couple of weeks or so from when I'm recording this. And then at some point I will get Roswell's Day 11 done up and out the way as well. Like I said, I'm just trying to get all caught up with these ones. And I think things may settle down a little bit towards the end of the month, once I've got a few more videos done out the way, because we have more After Class Far Beyond the World and Smoke Room to get done. And then we have to get caught up with Minotaur Hotel, as well as the new password update coming out this month. So quite a lot to fit in, but we'll get there. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll leave you with Dave, as we say goodbye for now.